Loong is a relatively old MMORPG. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it is bad. Just because an MMORPG is old doesn't mean it can't have any playability. In fact, because it is old, it must be doing something right to have lived this long, especially when new MMORPGs keep dying so quickly. So I didn't let the fact that this MMORPG is getting to the old years stop me from figuring out whether or not it is worth playing today, because a lot of old MMORPGs are overlooked. So the first thing you'll notice in this MMORPG is the character creation isn't that good. There are around 5 hairstyles and colors to pick between, with slightly more faces than that. So yeah, it's really limited. However, the focus on the game isn't what your characters look like, it's about how they will play when you make it into the game, because the weapon choices you pick will decide how the gameplay is when you're playing the game. As there are no classes in Loong, there's a variety of weapons you can pick and choose between, and you can in essence use all of them. However, this doesn't just affect the weapon choices, you can also decide what kind of armor you would like to equip, whether that would be cloth, leather, or plate. So you can choose whatever fits your playstyle. Also, taking into consideration, you are allowed to manually place in your stats. So you can literally create the character or class you've always imagined being. Whether that be a cloth-wearing, axe-wielding maniac that pumps all of its stats into agility, you're allowed to do that. Even if it's messed up and you won't be able to kill anything, you have that choice. Which I will always praise any MMORPG that allows you to have player freedom, because that's important to me in an MMORPG. Besides that, this MMORPG also boasts having a really large, somewhat open world to explore. Now, I say somewhat open world because whilst these regions are massive in scale, you still have a loading screen at the edges to get to the next really large region. So it gives you that illusion of being an open world MMORPG. The graphics as well are relatively good, especially for a game released in 2009. Though the combat system found within Loong is a little lackluster, which in my experience is what happens with most point-and-click MMORPGs. They're simplistic for a reason. All of the fighting has to be done whilst standing still, so that definitely makes the combat that much slower, as you can't move and use any of your skills. But besides that, as that's just a minor thing, most of the creatures that I had come across were relatively easy to kill. Besides the combat, the quests themselves that I participated in were generally just kill this monster or run across the world to find this one NPC and then come back, which, as I mentioned prior, this game has a really large world to go across. So I opted to autopath, which I will point out you can autopath anything, whether it is a monster or NPC. Everything in this game is autopathable, which is just unfortunate. I dislike the autopath feature. There are some games I have seen it done correctly, but generally it just makes the game feel like you're playing a mobile game and you don't actually have to do anything. You can just sit back, relax, and let the autopath do everything for you, which is not something you want when you're playing a game. But as far as I could see from the time I was playing, there's nothing interesting to be found in these large regions other than a plethora of monsters ready to fight. All of the NPCs that have quests or are of some importance are clustered together in some corner. They are not off the beaten path and are not generally hidden, so there's no need to go searching for some kind of mysterious NPC because they're all together. So whilst Loong has some beautiful regions, there's no real point in exploring other than for exploration's sake. Moving on to the player population, which is always an important factor of any MMORPG, the easiest answer for this question is that I couldn't find a single player through my travels. They could simply be somewhere else, perhaps at a higher level zone, but for some reason I couldn't see a single person. The towns I visited, the areas I traversed, there were none. Not even where you would spawn a new character, which is just sad. It's never a good sign to see an MMORPG this empty. Generic or not, autopath or not, I like MMORPGs and I hate seeing them this empty. So Loong, from a first impression standpoint, is a relatively generic Asian-inspired wuxia-themed MMORPG. From the scenery, to the weapon choices, outfits, and the characters that inhabit the world, which isn't inherently bad. However, there are better Asian-inspired MMORPGs to play if you're looking for that type of MMORPG, especially with Moonlight Blade coming out to the West soon. So I would have to say, Loong in its current state is not worth playing in my opinion, from what I've played. It may have been a few years ago, but currently, it's not all that good, and I wouldn't recommend it for anybody looking for an MMORPG like this. Now this is of course just my opinion, yours may differ, and I would love to hear what your opinions are in the comment section if you disagree. That being said guys, I do hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.